Alright, so in this video I want to talk about the Iraq War and basically the meaning of terrorism and how it kind of was radicalized, particularly in just the mainstream media and the use of language, as well as how they turned 9/11 from a tragic event into a mass kind of reason to invade around the world and maintain American hegemony and capitalism, basically. So, yeah, I'll start. And one thing to note about empire as well is that empire is always is both rational and irrational in a dialectical kind of way. Is both at the same time. What I mean by that is that there is agency by the ruling class to go to other countries in order to expand their means of generating profit and accumulation. You can, as soon as you're able to expand markets, for example, there's a bigger ability to push products. There's a bigger ability to get the resources, get the labor, the cheap kind of materials in order to produce things. So there's a number of objective things that you could say that the capitalist class are rationally pursuing in order to maintain their profits and expand, which is basically the nature of capitalism, pretty much. So yeah, but it's also rational at the same time, in that it requires for the capitalists to create their own ideology through the mainstream media, as well as institutions as well that breed capitalist ideologies, such as the education system. So a lot of these factors need to be controlled and maintained as institutions that maintain and perpetuate capitalist ideas. So it's irrational in the way that it can't blindly support generating profit for the ruling class. It also needs to appeal to some vague concept of freedom that happens to coincide to the working class's interests in a way. Even though it doesn't meet their economic interests, it can meet some sort of moral interest that is brought upon and dispersed through capitalist ideology from the top to the bottom. And terrorism in this mix as well is basically seen as belligerence to the freedom that the capitalist class wishes to showcase itself. So freedom is not just freedom in the abstract, but it becomes freedom, or American freedom, or British freedom, or British values, or American values. It becomes these specific connotations of freedom that are usually associated with a particular ruling class interest, and particularly this takes the form of nationalism, and nationalism uses is a way that the ruling class tricks the working class into siding with them rather than an international enemy that's manufactured. So nationalism is basically the ruling class using its own ideology in order to create an irrational fear in order to protect its own culture, and is the capitalist idea of freedom that is dispersed from themselves through the mainstream media, through the institutions, to the working class. It is to maintain capitalist hegemony and silence outside opinion and relegate terrorism to just kind of an irrational kind of anti-freedom, pro-hate kind of ideology that is, universally, that can be hated in that regard. In other words, it's a means to sink the capitalist class's interests into working class ideology and create an irrational fear from below that feeds the perpetuation of wealth and the expansion of capitalism, basically. And what it does, it makes the capitalist class and the working class in any given nation state seen as like a collaborative relationship that is, that syncs up their ideas of morality, ethics, and freedom, basically. And because the capitalist class always has to engage in exploitation and even more so during crisis, like almost to like an ecstatic amount, because of the falling rate of profit. So it's the falling rate of profit that pushes crisis, and in this crisis it has to resort to nationalism in order to explain the faults of its own system. So instead of the capitalist class actually being the underminers of productivity and growth, it is an outside irrational enemy that the masses are then directed towards, and also directed in order to make up for the fact of the falling rate of profit as well at the same time. And in many ways, the fear of the communists during the Cold War is now transformed into the fear of the terrorists, particularly through the Iraq War in particular, and the fear of ISIS, and the fear of and just anti-Muslim sentiment in general that's usually linked with terrorism as well. And terrorism works better as an irrational enemy for the capitalist class because, because communism is it has rationality to it. It has a doctrine. There's a communist manifesto, but there's no terrorist manifesto. That's the thing. So whatever terrorist manages to be is whatever the ruling class says it is. So it can be basically a form of their own fragmentation that is, entirely pure through their own ideology, basically. Whatever their enemy may or may not be is filtered through the dominant paradigm, so there's no chance to actually learn perspectives from the opposite side. Because that perspective is constantly changing, and there is no set doctrine to learn from. And it's a label created by the capitalist class in order to redirect hatred in the times of crisis. So the wars in the Middle East, for example, it has two purposes. One, it manages to maintain, the capitalist class in their pursuit of profit, but it also obscures from the realities of class, and it obscures class consciousness. The war in Iraq, or any intervention for that matter, it was not to bring democracy, but to maintain capitalist hegemony through the security of the region, pretty much. Because it's a very key geopolitical zone for oil and economic plunder, and that's particularly why Israel is there as well. The claim that Saddam Hussein had mass weapons of destruction or ties to Al-Qaeda was completely told by the Congressional Committee that oversaw that investigation as a complete fabrication as well. John Scarlett, who also wrote the dossier telling Blair to invade Iraq because of these weapons of mass destruction, he even knew it was a lie as well, and told Blair to hide this from the public and hide it basically to cover up their crimes of invading. He knew that their military significance was not a threat at all. All that Iraq had, and Saddam Hussein, was the chemical weapons that he was given by the CIA to redirect towards Iran and the revolution that they had when they overthrew the Shah. So Saddam Hussein initially was on the CIA payroll in order to take out Iran, and that's why he has the chemical weapons, and a lot of the small military significance that it does have is as a result from that, basically. There's another reason why war is very profitable for banks and major industry as well, is a term by Joseph Schumpeter, and it's called creative destruction. It basically means if you radically destroy something, that creates the opportunity to allow something to form and create something to replace that particular phenomenon. So that applies to countries, not just ideas or gadgets or stuff like that. So basically, if you destroy a country, that creates the opportunity for institutions like the IMF and the World Bank to invest in that country, and that creates profit for those investors into that country. It creates a new pool of investment and growth through war, through destruction, because of what comes after, as well as the military contractors who are paid by the US government in order to invade that country as well. So there's a domestic profit, and there's also a profit that comes from after destruction. So there's profit in the destruction itself, but there's also a profit in the aftermath of the reconstruction project. If you want to know how wasteful the Iraq War was, Apparently, as much as a third or half of the funds allocated by Congress for the 2003 war remained unaccounted for, meaning it went missing. It was handed out to contractors, but they did nothing with it, or they overspent it in a way that was not beneficial for even the pro-war intelligentsia who wanted to invade Iraq on moral grounds. It was an expensive war due to they're wanting the capitalist class to create a profit out of that situation. So in those military contractors that are done by the US government, they can hand out the taxes and take out various war bonds in order to accumulate money and take on more debt, to basically allow the private sector to reap the benefits, whereas the public sector and the masses and the public are essentially forced to pay the costs as a result. Overall, in this ideological construction of the terrorists, for example, it creates a lot of fatigue as well in the masses, because a lie can only be sold once, but you can always move on to another lie. That's the thing. It means that even though the lie of weapons of mass destruction managed to work at one historical point in time, it's not going to be able to use again, because the masses do remember from previous lies, and the ideology needs to refine itself in that kind of way. But we also need to be aware of how it can be manifested, and the way to do that is basically through class consciousness, because class consciousness it overrides ideology in many ways and allows the masses to see reality for what it is. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say about ideology, so thanks.